Sony so hard tried to get me to do a sequel. I'm not. Hello, Sony, I'm not making a sequel. I actually wanted to do this movie 20 years ago and it didn't work, and I'm quite happy it's coming out now because in our times when everybody more and more becomes nationalistic and is against globalization and right-wing parties rise, it's good to remind the people that not so long ago, people died to keep our democracy alive. I would say everything on the aircraft carriers, because you have to understand there is no more aircraft carriers. So what we had to do, we had to build a platform like half the size of an aircraft carrier and put real planes on it, and then create enough wind and blue screen and make this all look real. And just to light this, to get the feeling of an aircraft carrier is incredibly difficult. I think the most memorable scene for me is, in a weird way, like why I made this movie. I wanted to show how hell diving looks. And everybody always said to me, why you want to do that? I said, look, it's a mechanical thing. What we do today with missiles, these people did with planes. And they had to release their bomb as late as possible. And that's just so incredibly brave. And naturally, the people who sank carriers were the people who released their bombs the latest. And a lot of people died because they couldn't pull out anymore. A movie called Anonymous. It was a story which was very important. I want to kind of show that the pen is mightier than the sword. And what better story to tell that with Shakespeare, who died without being acknowledged, who he was. But he's the man who's remembered. All the people who he was fighting and who stopped him from telling who the real person was, nobody knows anymore. I don't quite believe in aliens, that they have visited our Earth, but I wish they would do. I like just the fact, that would be such an amazing moment in our history when suddenly we realize we're not alone. As a kid, I remember I loved disaster movies. And then over time, I realized all of a sudden it's always combination of ideas. For example, Independence Day was on the one hand an alien invasion movie, but it was also a disaster movie. So the aliens were like a disaster coming over us. And Day After Tomorrow, it was kind of showing in a disaster movie what will happen to our Earth when we keep doing what we're doing. 2012, it was just the fact that I always was fascinated by Noah's Ark story. And I just came up with a modern way to tell a Noah's Ark story. Oh, I'm not making a sequel. Actually, Sony so hard tried to get me to do a sequel. I'm not. Hello, Sony, I'm not making a sequel. There's one book, but I think Warner Brothers owns it. It's called The Forever War. It's probably the most amazing science fiction book ever written. My next big challenge will be my next film. It's a movie called Moonfall, and it has a very simple concept. The moon is falling to Earth, but the moon is not what we think it is.